Hello, my name is Dr. Shelley Kresyman, and I'm honored to be included in this forum with such esteemed speakers and presenters today. I'm a retired public school educator. I served as an elementary school teacher, a literacy specialist, a region administrator, and an elementary school principal. Primarily, I worked in Clark County, Nevada, which includes Las Vegas. And I retired in 2016. I've also been an adjunct professor for many years, facilitating courses in teacher education and educational leadership for both master's and doctoral programs at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Grand Canyon University, the University of Phoenix, and Sierra Nevada University for the past 6 years, as well as University of Nevada in Reno. I've worked primarily the last 6 years in the educational leadership departments, preparing future school leaders and department administrators. I've also practiced Qigong for the past 30 years, originally under the tutelage of Dr. Stephen Bell in Las Vegas, who passed away in 2019. And currently, I am honored to practice with esteemed Master Mohammed Reza Nehad in Reno, Nevada. Practicing Tai Chi and Qigong for me has helped me to maintain my body, my mind, my spirit. Throughout all these years, I am extremely aware of the holistic mind-body wellness benefits that I have experienced. But over the years in education, I have also shared some of these practices with my students and with my staff. When I was an elementary school teacher, I led my students in some simple Qigong techniques when we needed what we called a brain break, when they needed to get up and move and or get some focus because we were going to do something that they needed to be, that would be more rigorous academically, or an assessment, or when, little people need lots of movement. And the students just love the Qigong. In fact, they would ask for it. Let's do some Qigong today. So I know that when you bring this to young children, they are very accepting of it. When I first became a school principal, I was lucky enough to be assigned to a school that ran like a model city with all the departments you would have in a city. And as part of that program, we also had a year-long school-wide theme that we developed each year and integrated into the curriculum along with the model city curriculum. And I was able to help develop that first year, and our theme was wellness. And because of that theme, I was able to introduce Qigong to my faculty as well as to the student body. The very first staff development day, you usually have that at the very beginning of the year with your teachers before the students come. We introduced our school-wide theme. And as part of that, I gave some background as to the benefits of Qigong and some of the history. And then I taught them or led them in 8 sections of brocade. And I continued leading them in those practices at the beginning of each staff development day for quite a few meetings. And then I offered it in the morning before school some days, just a few minutes. We would just do those 8 sections, and I would lead them in that. And as you might imagine, in the beginning, I had many teachers that participated. But the school year gets going and they get busy. And over time, the numbers dwindled. But the handful of teachers that continued with me would come to me and tell me how much better they felt on the days that they did those practices. And they wanted to continue, and that they really noticed the difference in themselves. And so those teachers in particular were able to take some of those exercises to their students and encourage them to use them with some consistency. So I have seen firsthand how bringing these practices to schools can benefit students and teachers alike. My topic today is addressing stress through Tai Chi and Qigong in K-12 schools and universities. I believe there's a great need for Tai Chi and Qigong in teacher and educational leadership preparation programs, where you're training upcoming teachers and upcoming school leaders on best practices. I believe that is not just academics, but also needs to include the whole child that we're addressing. And the best way to begin introducing that is if the teachers practice it themselves and see the benefits, and then they will take it to their students. And I think this is needed more than ever in pre-K to 12 schools today. Some people might ask, well, why do schools and preparation programs need to include these practices? There's such a focus today on the academics, and you must get those academics in. And I think, unfortunately, we're forgetting that in order to do your best at those academics, you need your body to be healthy and your mind to be clear. And you need to be ready to accept those academics. And I think we can help with that by introducing these practices. School districts in the United States today, as I'm sure most of you know, are in crisis mode due to a variety of factors. We're losing teachers and administrators at an alarming rate. Teacher shortages across the United States are critical. And based on past and current research, job stress is one of the key factors. Expectations keep rising, increasing, and teachers and administrators have more responsibilities and pressures than ever before. But unfortunately, they're receiving less respect and less support from their communities. Teacher anxiety and depression has increased greatly over the past many years, but especially since COVID. Morale is low, and teachers are leaving the profession in droves. Another problem is that enrollment in teacher and leadership preparation programs have greatly diminished. So it's a double problem. The existing teachers and the veteran teachers are leaving the profession, and we are bringing more licensed or less licensed teachers to the profession. And this is creating a true crisis in education in the United States today. Students are also more stressed than ever. Suicide rates for middle and high school students has increased and mental health issues have risen greatly. Some of this has really skyrocketed since COVID and since our lockdowns and students weren't consistently all in school. But this has been growing over the years, even prior to that. In 2010, I completed my doctoral research and dissertation. My topic for my dissertation was on school principal stress. And interestingly enough, the reason that I chose that topic back then is that I was a region administrator at the time. We were administrating 60 schools in our region. And I would meet daily with the principals of those schools, as well as the assistant principals. What I noticed as I worked with all of these principals in meetings was that they all looked exhausted and overdone and stressed out, and they all had dark circles under their eyes. And that encouraged me to try to find out what was going on with our education system that administrators and principals were so stressed out. That was in 2010, and the problems have just grown and increased incrementally since that time. When you look at the research in this area, primarily it has been focused on adults, but there is a body of research demonstrating that Tai Chi and Qigong and mindfulness practices can help greatly with specific medical conditions. I'm sure you're going to be hearing from the experts in those fields during this forum. But also, a lot of that research points to stress reduction and an increase of overall wellness for the adults. There has not been nearly as much research done for students for various reasons. According to the very recent research from the Rand Corporation, 60% of teachers reported that they are burned out, and the National Education Association, which is the largest teachers union, reported that more than 50% of the teachers polled said they were more likely to leave the profession or retire due to job stress. So this is something that isn't going away, and we need to be addressing this right now. I believe if we include the simple practices of Qigong and Tai Chi in teacher and educational leadership preparation programs, we'll be providing educators with the tools to maintain their own wellness, as well as being able to include it in instructional practices and integrate it through the curriculum for students. Along with the need for teachers and administrators to benefit from these practices, if we can start teaching students at a young age how to use the practices for their own well-being, we'll be providing them with tools for life. Findings from a meta-analysis of studies addressing adolescents showed potential benefits on depression and anxiety symptoms that we know are growing today. There are a few districts and schools in the United States already offering these opportunities for students. I'm just going to note a couple of those. Boston Middle School initiated an 8-week program using Tai Chi and mindfulness for stress reduction. When those 8 weeks were over, they took some anecdotal evidence from the students, and students reported that they experienced well-being, calmness, relaxation, improved sleep, less reactivity, increased self-awareness, and a sense of interconnection or interdependence with nature. These are some pretty strong results. Of course, they're just anecdotal, but for students to be able to say that after an 8-week period, just imagine if we were integrating those things throughout the years. Virginia Tech partnered with a school and helped to develop lessons for 2nd and 3rd grade students, and they align those lessons to their state standards, with the strong emphasis on coverage of those state standards in schools these days. It's very useful, practical, to be able to integrate the practices into existing curriculum. If you can do this, it will be a lot more accepted by districts to bring these practices to our students. I do want to note that in that particular study, they stated that trying to get some anecdotal evidence from these young students was a little trickier because it's difficult for them to accurately self-report at this age. And a high school in Newton, North Carolina, developed a 9-week Tai Chi curriculum for their PE courses. And at the end of that time, those high school students reported greater stress reduction and better focus. I do know that there are other areas that around the nation that are trying to include some practices like this in their PE programs, and that may be a great place to initiate that in schools. A lot of times your PE teachers also teach health, which is the natural connection to these Tai Chi and Qigong practices. So the question is asked, how do we begin promoting the inclusion of these practices in teacher and principal preparation programs, and of course, leading to bringing them to schools? I believe that first we need to do a comprehensive review of the literature from peer-reviewed journals and publications to create a baseline for where we are right now in the United States on introducing these practices, Tai Chi and Qigong, for pre-K school curriculums. I believe that if we include the research on mindfulness and yoga, that we may be able to create a larger body of research, because I think these terms are more familiar and have been more accepted right now. They're more discussed in the mainstream literature. And I believe that even through medical practices, these terms are more often utilized. After we create a report on that body of research, I believe then we can begin contacting districts and schools that have initiated some of these practices into their curriculum and ask them for the research that they have done or are currently doing, any anecdotal records from teachers and students, and find out what their process for inclusion was to include this in their courses. Again, I would include mindfulness and yoga when searching for those programs. And then I would prepare presentations for the university education departments with the research and the benefits and applications of Tai Chi and Qigong in their preparation programs. Once you have some university departments that are interested, I believe from working in many of these departments that if you were to introduce it as introducing it into maybe just one course over the period of time that these students are in their program, and then grow it through their other courses so it becomes part of what they do, would probably be the best way to introduce that in those programs. Ultimately, if you have teachers and administrators practicing, then they're more likely to be comfortable bringing those to their students in those schools. So to conclude, first, I just would like to thank you all for allowing me to share my thoughts on the inclusion of Tai Chi and Qigong practices in K-12 schools and educational preparation programs at the universities. With the body of research on the benefits of these practices for body, mind, health, and wellness, it should be a natural progression that we begin teaching our students so they will then be able to promote these positive changes for generations to come. Thank you again.